Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Moneyline with Nancy on AIT, where we follow the money, the markets, and the ideas shaping the future of Nigeria's economy. I am Nancy Naji. Let me start with a simple scene that many Nigerians recognize. A professional sitting or sitting at your dining tables at night, scrolling through your bank alerts, checking investment apps, thinking about school fees, rising food prices, rent prices on the increase, and the value of the naira. The question is the same across households and boardrooms in the country. How do you build wealth when the economy feels this uncertain and tough? Inflation still remains elevated, double digits. The naira faced significant volatility until it got stable. All prices on the rise, threatening that volatility. Interest rates are still high. And for many investors, the rule book for building and protecting wealth in Nigeria has been rewritten in real time. So the big question I'll be asking this morning is one that millions of Nigerians are grappling with. How do you navigate wealth creation and investment in tough economic times? So I'm talking about you and your money today. Enough of the economy of Nigeria and all of that. Is the stock market, real estate, dollar assets, fixed income, or a new generation of digital and global investment opportunities? Joining me shortly to break down the data, the strategy, and the risk is Ugodre Obichukwu, the founder and Chief Executive Officer of Nairametrics. Ugodre will be joining me shortly. But that's not only our conversation for today. As the world marks International Women's Day, still the Women's Month, the month of March, we'll turn to another critical economic question. Women are increasingly building and surviving wealth creation across the globe. It's not just about empowerment, economic power we're giving participate in the economy, but gain, build, and win in it. Joining me later in the program is Udo Okonjo, the Chief Executive Officer and Vice Chairman of Fine and Country West Africa, a leading figure in Africa's real estate and wealth creation landscape, to discuss how women can position themselves for financial leadership, asset ownership, and long-term prosperity. So from navigating wealth in uncertain times to building economic power, this is a conversation today about strategy, about resilience and opportunity in a changing economy. Today's program is about you. This is Moneyline with Nancy, and the conversation starts after the break. We'll be right back. This is Moneyline with Nancy, and this is a program that sets your business day for you.
Inflation played a 9-1 on us, and the cost of doing business and the cost of living crisis persists. But we can win. We can win on those two things.
We need to work on our infrastructure, maintain what we have, and add new infrastructure. Isn't it interesting to you that it still costs less to ship something from China to Lagos than from Dakar to Nigeria?
Resilience is not only bouncing back when there is crisis or shock. Resilience is about the ability to adapt, the ability to innovate, the ability to thrive in a VUCA world, which is basically a world that we have a lot of vulnerabilities, a world that we have a lot of uncertainty.
Thank you, Nancy. You've been doing a great job in trying to educate Nigerians, and we must appreciate you for that.
Everybody tells me you're the gold standard in this business, yeah.
Well, Nancy Naji, for the best you can be, and for that change that you want.
Previously on Moneyline with Nancy.
How do you see it transmitting into the economy? You've just spoken about inflation. Are there some other silent areas that perhaps we're not thinking about?
The truth is, it's a good question, but the truth is inflation should be top of mind for policymakers on the fiscal as well as the monetary policy authorities. If you recall, they recently cut rates.
Cut rates.
Albeit a signaling effect for growth, but I guess hindsight is 2020.
This situation hadn't started.
Hadn't manifested.
Yes.
So the question is, was the rate cut too early? I've seen a lot of analysts already speak on that, but the truth of the matter is this. Inflation has this knock-on effect on everyone, whether you are on the top 1% of the economy or you are at the bottom of the pyramid. Either way, as they like to say in Nigeria, big man, big problem. So everyone will have to pay a price for this unfortunate war, which in my mind, greater minds need to prevail in order to stop the bleeding. And I mean that figuratively.
Previously on Moneyline with Nancy.
How do you see it transmitting into the economy? You've just spoken about inflation. Are there some other silent areas that perhaps we're not thinking about?
The truth is, it's a good question, but the truth is inflation should be top of mind for policymakers on the fiscal as well as the monetary policy authorities. If you recall, they recently cut rates.
Cut rates.
Albeit a signaling effect for growth, but I guess hindsight is 2020.
This situation hadn't started.
Hadn't manifested.
Yes.
So the question is, was the rate cut too early? I've seen a lot of analysts already speak on that, but the truth of the matter is this. Inflation has this knock-on effect on everyone, whether you are on the top 1% of the economy or you are at the bottom of the pyramid. Either way, as they like to say in Nigeria, big man, big problem. So everyone will have to pay a price for this unfortunate war, which in my mind, greater minds need to prevail in order to stop the bleeding.
Ugodre Obichukwu joins me now. He's the founder and chief executive officer at Nairametrics. Hello, Ugo. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Hey, Nancy, I can see you and hear you very clearly. I can see you're wearing a very red, nice jacket.
and I can see you with your cap. So we're good. Good morning, Ugo. How are you?
Very fine, Nancy. Very fine.
We've seen this year now, isn't it? We've seen now. We've seen this year.
Yes, we have.
We've seen this year. Cool. Ugo, how much tougher will these times be? Let me start from there. Petrol, your mannerism just gives it all. I think I should just start on that note. Petrol being forecast to get to 2,000 naira per litre. On Sunday, I bought a litre of fuel for 1,081 naira at an NNPC filling station somewhere in town after church service. Last week on my program, I did mention, and for those that watched the program ardently, I did mention that petrol prices would increase. Not that I'm an angel of doom, but if you're watching what's happening, you would definitely predict it. So how much of these times will be tougher? And will it get better soon? Let's start from that.
Yeah, very, very good way to start this session, Nancy. It's a very precarious situation at the moment. And I say this because the Nigerian economy is now very well market driven. And so we are a lot more exposed to what happens globally than we ever were in the past. So with what's going on in Iran and oil prices haven't crossed $100, even though it retreated last night, thankfully, just because of one comment from Donald Trump, it does show that there is potential, upside and downside for Nigeria. The upside, of course, is that when oil prices are up globally, that tends to improve Nigeria's fiscal buffers. So essentially, we see crude oil revenue increase, and meaning there's a lot more money available to the government. It could also mean, to some extent, stable exchange rates, because at the end of the day, one of the reasons why we have strong exchange rate is because of the sort of external reserves buffers that we've been able to maintain in the last 1 year. But Nancy, now this is the downside. The downside is as oil prices go up, energy prices locally would also go up. And when energy prices go up, everybody feels it immediately. Unlike crude oil prices, where you know that when it goes up, we tend to see the benefits much later. If you remember the days of crude oil windfall and excess crude accounts and all those things, they tend to be things that happens much later. But today, because we're operating a market-driven economy where there are no longer subsidies, food prices are going to go up. And when they go up, that means inflation rate goes up. So you can see what has happened in just a week, Nancy. You've seen prices go from about 900 naira, in fact, from about 800 and something naira to over 1,000 naira within a space of 1 week. So that is just how quickly things can change. In fact, could even get worse. So imagine that you have a foreign investor who has already decided that they're coming into Nigeria. They've voted to invest $10, $20 million in Nigeria as part of our drive for FDI. All of a sudden, geopolitical risk is now an issue. So you're sitting back in your boardroom and you're saying, you know what, hold on to any investment offshore because you want to see where the world is going to. Are we looking at the world war coming up, or are we looking at a regional conflict that might last beyond now? So these are a lot of the things that are going on, and I'm worried, and I'm saying, hey, we have to be very careful now, especially as we're in an election campaigning year where different things starts to happen that are outside of everyone's control. So there's a lot to worry about. But on the upside, I think the fact that we have a more market-driven economy means that market structures are also created to address these issues. And that is what I think a lot of people's focus should be on, at least in the immediate term. That's it.
Ugo, are we in for a long haul? Because I heard you earlier say that it's going to get worse. Are we in for a long haul? So that I know how to tighten my belt.
I mean, aren't we in the long haul already?
We are. We have for the past 3 years, or even
for the past 3
in fact, more than 3 years ago, 8 years of Buhari, 3 years of Tinubu, 11 years of APC. So we've been in for a long haul. Yes.
Protracted 11 years long, of course, under the the APC
administration
that have been in power. Yeah, for 11 years or so. So this is just a continuation of the long haul. But in terms of what is happening now, I think a lot depends on what happens globally, because what is good now is on a macro level. I think the fabric of what makes our economy a lot more resilient, I think we have that foundation on ground now. Now, but the point is, so long as geopolitical risk, which at the last, I think it was the last Davos summit, a lot of people mentioned that was the key issue.
Yes.
Well, now, yeah. So because geopolitical risk will continue to raise head all year round, I think that that could be one problem that we might continue to face as we try to bring our economy back. Remember, Nancy, we've gone through 3 painful years of higher interest rates so that we can attract foreign portfolio investment. We need to start to wind that down and start to attract foreign direct investment. But to attract foreign direct investment, you need a stable global economy. You need stable geopolitics. You don't want investors to start to feel that we're in an uncertain world. So that is why sometimes it kind of looks like maybe, just maybe, this pain might stretch a lot longer than a lot of us expect. So, to your point, you got to tighten your belt. You got to take advantage of the situations as they come through. I remember when the exchange rate was trending at 1.3, I did tell some people, I said, if you have dollar needs, if you have a need, if you have expenses that you maintain, maybe you have a family abroad that you maintain in FX, whenever you see opportunities like this, seize it, because things could change quickly. Where are we now? We're now back to 1.4, which I tend to feel is where the CBN probably wants the exchange rate to be. Because to be honest, a stronger Naira also has its disadvantage for us here in Nigeria, as much as we want a stronger Naira. So is it a long haul? We're in a long haul already. I think that the pain could last a little bit longer.
So is it a good time? Because at the beginning of the program, in my opening, I did say that today's show is about Nigerians, as much as it's about Nigerians every day. Because I try to make this show very localized, very practicable, and sometimes very basic, because it's all about financial literacy. Is it a good time to discuss navigating wealth and investment in these tough times when people are just merely surviving, my friend? So can we tell people that this is a good time to create wealth? Because even in war, in difficult times, people are making money. So
no better time to look for opportunity. Remember what I said earlier, we're now in a market-driven economy. And in a market-driven economy, you tend to see new forms of wealth creation start to open up. And when they open up, it is those who seize that opportunity that take advantage of it. So yes, very important to have a lot of discussions around wealth and investment. And if I may even add, that is why I support any initiative that brings a lot of people together to discuss wealth and investment. In fact, we're even having one very soon. I think I mentioned it earlier to you. Yeah, so we're having a similar summit as well. We call ours WISE. So the whole idea as well is get the investment community, let us come together and discuss how exactly are we going to position ourselves to tap into the opportunities that we find amid risk. Remember, Nancy, whenever there is risk, I have a boss who used to tell me that then, don't always show me risk, show me opportunities, because risk always creates opportunities. And then more importantly, Nancy, I don't know if you've been noticing, AI, as great as AI is, there are a lot of deep fakes out there.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of influencers now who discuss all things finance.
Yes.
Just the algorithms can give them different. So there are a lot of things out there, and people are beginning to wonder, okay, so who are the people that we really need to be talking to?
Believe.
Who are the shows? Exactly. So you have shows like Moneyline with Nancy. These are the kind of programs that people need to know, people need to watch, because these are people that are credible. So part of what we all need to do, just like you did last year as well, we got to come together and have community of people. Let's come into whether it's a seminar, whether it's a webinar, whether it's an investor fair, like we're about to have in Nairametrics. Bring them together in a room and let's discuss finance and how Nigerians who are reeling can also seize on this opportunity. Because we all know, Nancy, that's what a lot of the big guns do. That is what they all do. Whenever oil prices go up, they make money.
Yes.
Whenever oil prices go down, they make money. Whenever the exchange rate goes up or down, they make money. So are we fools? No. So the whole idea is we got to be able to bring these guys together and let us all discuss investments, savings, and even more importantly, endowment, which is pensions, and how we can also save wealth for the future. Because whether we like it or not, Nigeria has changed. It's a market-driven economy. The global, whatever happens geopolitically also affects Nigeria. And the more financial literate you are, like how you said localized.
Yes.
The more financial literate you are on a localized level, the better you are able to withstand a lot of all these pressures that we're having.
Thank you, Ugo, for bringing that up. There's a WhatsApp number on the screen, so people can actually also send us messages, ask important questions. It's good that platforms that are credible come up with initiatives to educate. And thank you for saying that. Moneyline with Nancy, we did our investment forum last year. In fact, I had 2 events between November and December last year because I've noticed that in as much as there's so much, you see so many financial literacy platforms, but there are still a lot of them that are not as credible as the rest of us. Why I'm saying the rest of us? Because we've been so deep in this game. I've been doing this now for a very long time. And what you also said is true in the sense that everybody now is a financial literacy or a finance expert. And I see them online and I see them, I'm like, where's this actually coming from? They just want to do it for the algorithm. So let me give you a scenario, Ugo. I have an inner circle community. There was a lady that entered the inner circle community after an investment forum. You know what this lady expected us to do? Which she was raising with my staff. My staff came back to me with that, to say that she was expecting that we're going to be giving her like investment stuff, what to do now, that she will get 100% gain and all of that, and she was threatening. And we were telling her, madam, this is not how this thing works. She was like, no, that she's in other communities, that when she puts 10,000, she's getting 100,000 the next day. I was like, I just told myself, can we just let her go if she doesn't want to understand? Because we tried to explain to her, but apparently she didn't want. And I just hope that wherever she is, she doesn't get her hands burnt. So that is actually to the core of what we are trying to say, that in terms of getting that right information there. Now, for people watching and listening right now, Ugo, I know we do have professional platforms for this kind of advices rather, because they're plenty, and that people pay, you know, because sometimes these things are not free. You get free information on television and radio, but if you also want well-grounded investment tailored for you, you need to seek a professional, and that is very important according to your risk, according to your age, according to the amount you have. But Ugo, can you actually give my viewers like perhaps 3 investment strategies that they really need to begin to think about in this tough economic times, and that things may just get, I'm a Christian, things may just get better, and not to say get worse.
That's, you put me in a spot, but I will give it to your viewers. First of all, though, important that you know what you said is very poignant. Being able to find people with credibility is very important, especially in this world. And also, it's also important that people also listen to what SEC says all the time. Securities and Exchange Commission. You can't just, when you see investment, you know, outlets that tell you bring X amount of money and then we'll double it in 1 month. Those are all fake. Money doesn't move like that. Investments don't happen that way, right? So it's not that simple. I had somebody tell me recently, oh, I have 100 million. Please, what do you think I should do with it? It doesn't work like that. What your risk appetite matters a lot in how you want to deploy your money. So while we welcome a lot of people into this financial literacy space, it's very important that people discern always check the person that you're following. Be sure that they're credible people. Check their CV, check their LinkedIn. Be very, very sure. Also check their work background and experience as well, right? Very, very important. Now, to your point, Nancy. So my investment pieces are usually they're just, you know me, it's very local. First of all, I always say, don't be a fool. That's how I always start. Don't be a fool. That's my number 1 rule. Now, don't be a fool is, in an investment world, fools are a lot. That's why they tell you the greater fool theory. So the greater fool theory is the fact that in investment, is the fact that whenever you buy an asset at a high price, there is always another fool that you can sell that asset to, and then you make money. And there are more fools. So the higher the fools, the more money is made. But the more money is lost. So that's what Warren Buffett would call wealth transfer, not necessarily wealth creation, right? So don't be that greater fool. So don't be a fool. And don't be the fool means don't just follow people to invest when you know that the investment does not create any value, or the asset has no value. And this is why a lot of people don't still like cryptocurrency or things like Bitcoin, because they don't believe it has value. Even though some of us think it does have value, but they haven't seen the intrinsic value of it. And for that reason, they would never invest, even if it gives 1,000%. So the first thing you want to do is just don't be a fool. It's just based. Always remember, ask yourself, am I being a fool? The other thing, Nancy, is invest in yourself. I always tell people that you got to always invest in yourself first. The fact that Nancy is here today is because you've invested so much in yourself over the last 20 years. Because yourself, your well-being, your health, your mental health is the reason why you can continue to make right investment decisions, continue to mint money that you can use to always invest. Because investment most times is passive for a lot of people. So you do a job today that earns you money that you used to invest. But you got to continue to invest in yourself, invest in your career, invest in your well-being, invest in your health, invest in your mental health, more importantly, physical health as well, so that Nancy Incorporated can always be ready to continue to mint money for Nancy. So that's also very, 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 very important. Another thing I always try to tell people is start early. You got to start early. Start early means it's always important that whenever you see opportunities, listen, put your head close to the ground and start early to invest. Typically make the first move sometimes, because those who start early, especially investing, imagine if you have started investing in the stock market in January this year. Stock market is up 26% now. 26% already. So imagine if you had bought MTN, the first thing you told yourself, January, I'm going to buy MTN stock. You're probably up by over 20% already in just 2 months, right? So you got to be able to start making investment decisions early in age, early in life. Also figure out where you are in your life. There are some people, when you're younger, you're not married yet, you don't have kids, your investment ethos, your investment ideology is different. So start early to invest in the things that you will need immediately, which is you want to invest in your career, you want to invest in your education, you want to get a master's, you want to get a professional certification and all that stuff. And then lastly, Nancy, cut your losses early.
Cut your losses
hold on to losses for too long. So those are my investment advice that I can give you this morning.
Ugo, I know you say you're coming up, you're doing something this month. I wish I can be there with you to support, I won't be in Lagos, you know. But what day really is it, and how? How can people watching right now? Yes.
Yeah, so we're having our money fair. It's themed. It's called WISE, Wealth, Investment, Savings, and Endowment Fair at the Landmark in Lagos. It's taking place on the 17th and 18th, on Tuesday and Wednesday next week at Landmark Event Center in Lekki. It's free, so just as we like to do in Nairametrics, it's basically financial literacy. We're going to have panel sessions with credible people. I wish you could be there, Nancy. I would have loved so much, but don't worry. Next year, we will fly you down to Lagos for this one next year.
That would be so nice. Yes.
Because people need to see a lot of credible people speak finance a lot more, so that they can even see them and humanize with them, touch them, gist with them, talk to them, exchange contacts, so that we can continue to create as well. That is all what the money fair is for, and hopefully we can have people attend next week. We have a lot of people already lined up for the event, a lot of headliners, which we will share in the next coming days. Registration is picking up really fast, limited slots available. But Nancy, please tell your fans we're happy to welcome all of them.
Yeah, so register WISE. Investment, wealth, investment, savings, and what's the E part? Endowments. Thank you, Ugo. Yes. I'm looking forward to next year. I know that you have a fantastic one this month. I wish you well. Let's just continue to keep the light shining for those of us that are within this space. And I'm proud to be amongst you, because most of you are men, who I happen to be the woman in you people's midst. But it's a good place.
Your investment this year, I'm going to be in your fair as well. Please, you got to let me know time.
So fantastic. Yes, we'll do that again this year, by God's grace. Thank you, Ugo. So take care.
All right, thank you.
Have a good one. All right.
You too.
All right. I've been speaking with Ugo Dre Obichukwu, who is the founder and the chief executive officer at Nairametrics, and we've been talking about creating wealth as well as navigating investment in tough times. You've heard him. No amount is too small. I tell my team, I said, even with 5,000 Naira, you can invest. So you don't really have an excuse. There's a savings bond every month that the government introduced over 10, 12 years ago. Every month, 5K, simple 5K. I know for some people it's not simple, but you can start with that. You know, if you have more than that, you can invest. Instead of just using that 5K and just drinking. I'm not saying drinking is not good because the drinking companies need money, but you understand the import of what I'm saying. Invest, start early, and no amount is too small. Let's take a break, and when we come back, it's time for us to get into another conversation, gaining economic power. For this time, for us as women, what do we need to do to gain, to win, and most importantly, win economically? We'll be right back after the break. Welcome to Moneyline with Nancy. Of course, this is the trusted source for in-depth conversation on finance, the economy, and everything in between. I am Nancy Naji.
The Abuja Treaty foresees that we have to adopt as Africa a linear model of integration of our market. We foresee, in terms of the agreement, that Africa one day will be a customs union.
That's a great question, Nancy. So you have basically two pillars here. There are things that you must do now because you are in an emergency situation. You have to provide helping hands to those who cannot cope anymore. The extreme poor people who cannot really afford to have food on their table. There is no time to wait.
Jo joins me right now. She's the Chief Executive Officer and the Vice Chairman, or is it Chairwoman? This is International Women's Month. She's the Vice Chair of Fine and Country West Africa. She joins me physically here in the studio. Hello! For the first time in many years, in person, because we've done virtual interviews.
We have, yes, from all over the world.
From all over the world. Thank you for coming.
I'm really glad to be here.
Welcome to Abuja.
Thank you, Nancy.
Where do we start from?
Tell me.
We've commemorated the day itself, yes. March 8th. But like I said, it's still a women's month.
Yes.
Let me take it from where we were yesterday.
Yeah.
Both of us, we celebrated International Women's Day at the NNPC headquarters.
Yes.
We were invited to speak. She was the guest speaker. I was also invited to facilitate. The Women in NNPC platform was created.
That's correct.
Now, why did I take it from here? The GCEO of NNPC Limited, as well as the chief tax officer of NMPC said something which struck me yesterday, that when we talk about women gaining economic power, women gaining that power, the real issue often lies in ownership, which I would expand to like asset ownership rather than income generation. Why is ownership critical for long-term wealth creation for women? Because you can't give from an empty drum.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, Nancy, yes. You know, yesterday, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because what was launched was really historical. It was a historical moment. It was the Women in NMPC WIN Network under the patronage of the GCEO, and you were there. You saw that this wasn't just a tokenism or symbolism. It was a structure being put in place for a very significant institution in this country. And so that was really something to celebrate, you know, beyond the general celebrations that we see, you know, across board in many places. Because at the end of the day, you know, after the one-day event, women go back to these economic gaps that exist, to these leadership gaps that exist in companies and across, right? So when that conversation was being had, the question of ownership, you know, goes beyond, there's economic ownership, but there's also ownership of power, ownership of, you know, when we talk about agency for women. When you are in a role in an organization, do you have the confidence, the courage, as it were, to essentially create your journey within that organization so that it takes you to the tables where decisions are made? Decisions that are strategically empowering and that advance women in that organization, so that women don't just get the titles, the claps, the celebrations, but also the financial power and leverage. Because it's one thing to earn an income, it's another thing to be in a position. There was a woman on the panel who said one of the things that she was looking forward to was actually in the oil and gas industry, ownership by more women.
Yes.
There are a handful of women who own, you know, maybe oil wells and that sort of thing. But, you know, whether it's across the supply chain, and this is not just about the oil and gas industry, this is across even financial sector, right? We have so many women and we celebrate them. CEOs of many banks, as it were. But as I always say, chairpersons, many women in Nigeria, none that I know of. Do you know of any? Across Africa, there may be a handful of micro banks, as it were. So ownership is very important. And as we say, you know, it's equity. Are women asking for equity? Women are building for the long haul, 20 years, 30 years. But are they owning? Intellectual property. We talk a lot about visibility during these times. You're giving women platform. But are they being paid for their intellectual property? A lot of women have experience, knowledge that they're bringing to the table, but they are not commanding commensurate value. So ownership is super important. Real estate is another you know, type of ownership that makes a big difference, because as you know, property is collateral, and real wealth is very difficult to actually build if you're not investing in property as an asset class. Then we talk about equity in companies, the stock market. Your earlier speaker was talking about, you know, the program they're having and the growth in the Nigerian stock market. Later on today, our collective is meeting on equities, both in Kenya, in Nigeria, and across Africa. So these conversations need to start so that we move from savings, you know, to really talking about building assets, you know, not just from income, but we move from talking about income, salaries. Salaries don't build wealth. Wealth is built by infrastructure. I keep talking about that infrastructure, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it. But yes, that would be my first comment on that.
So let me note that down, infrastructure. Yes. But I want to really, I want you to give me an expose from your experience in the real estate sector. And she's really into luxury estates. You know, so she has experience in what I want to ask her. From your experience in the real estate sector, what investment models do you think could make property ownership more accessible to women? Because I've also seen that in wealth accumulation patterns, men and women invest differently. Yes. Do women tend to adopt more resilient or long-term investment strategies? than the men. What? Just tell us something my viewers can go with today.
You know, I like what you were saying earlier with your earlier speaker, that you like, and that's the good thing about the Moneyline with Nancy. It's very practical, it's relatable for the ordinary Nigerian. So we're not talking top there. We want to talk real stuff, right? Most times we try to compare men and women, and that's fine because we do, you know, operate differently just because of our genders and our makeup, as it were. With women, from my experience, and I would say at least 45% of our clients at our company, Fine & Country, are women. And it's taken a while to see that, but it's something that we have to be proactive about through education, through working with women. What tends to happen is that women are not as confident when we invest. And so we tend to go for safe waters. We play the solo game. We play the small, you know, safe opportunities, as it were. We are not risky. We don't take bold risks, right? So most of the big towers, whether it's commercial, it's retail, it's industrial, hospitality, you know, and even the big luxury residential buildings, they're essentially developed mainly by men. And they don't do this alone. It's always in collaboration, joint ventures. And that mindset of collaboration is one that we must gift to more women. A man comes, owns the land, gets money from the bank, brings other equity contributors into the project, and before you know what, a bigger pie has been created. And so that's one of the things that we are looking to do at our Radiant Collective Capital, which is a platform that we set up from last year. For women, small checks, big impact, big opportunities. We're giving women access to opportunities that they typically would not consider by themselves. So if you don't have $1 million, do you have $10,000? If 100 women bring $10,000, now we have $1 million. And we can take advantage of an opportunity, whether it's in Lagos, it's in Lusaka, it's in Nairobi or Accra. And that's exactly what we're doing. We did our first investment.
So it should be like a mutual fund kind of thing.
It's not a mutual fund. We call it a collective. We're not advising women. We are creating a platform, and that brings me to that infrastructure. It's one thing to talk. We can talk until thy kingdom come. You know, I've talked on this show. I've written, I write articles and all of that stuff. But we need to create the rooms, the tables, where these deals are there on the table, where the right women are at the table, i.e. women who are willing and ready to participate. Right? So it's not enough for us to have capital and do the safe investments. We must become like capital allocators, but we want to make that easier by lowering the entry point. And so that's what that's about, that we come together and we invest together, tapping into the collective wisdom. Because in this room are women with incredible experience, financial, legal, governance. So we tap into that expertise and use it to de-risk the opportunities, right? And then we also use external experts. And on top of that, of course, the women in the room then form, you know, we have investment panels, we have the experts that review these opportunities, and the women have an opportunity to ask questions. Because most times, women, even in leadership, are intimidated by the language of wealth because it's very masculine, right? Think about it. If you're working with your wealth advisor, you know the language of wealth, because think about it, wealth has been generally created and led by men. So we want to feminize the concept of wealth. We want more women to feel comfortable. So we call our investment lounges, because when you think of a lounge, it's a place where you're comfortable. You're sitting with other women and you're able to ask questions. No question is silly or stupid, right? Every question is designed to improve and increase the confidence of these women. So infrastructure is super important. The opportunities, the network, and the education. Those are the three things that I believe that more of us need to commit to, even as we talk about advancing the cause of women.
So how do we now build multi-generational wealth? How do we do that as women? Because as women, family is very important.
Yes.
To us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very important to us. We're thinking, oh, what do we leave for the future? What do we leave for our children?
Yes.
And all of that? How do we build that?
Yes.
And is real estate something that we should consider? Should it be perhaps,
one of the things
not,
we
yes,
take,
if
right?
not number one, number two?
Right. You know, Nancy, I love that question because it's been coming up quite a lot. And here's where I'm going to go with it. First of all, when we talk multi-generational wealth, many people tend to think of money. We tend to think of the economics, you know, the money, financial, cash, the things that we're passing on to our children. But do you know that the first level of generational wealth is the wisdom you pass on to your children? It's the knowledge, it's the configuration, it's the character. Because guess what? There are many families that have built incredible wealth, and what happened? The second, third generation couldn't take it forward.
Yeah.
So if you haven't built children with the right internal character and configuration to, one, understand wealth, two, be able to build it themselves, three, be able to manage and take the one that you built forward, you're wasting your time talking about generational wealth. A few months ago, sometime last year, my daughter, who's in her 30s, she's married, she has a family, you know, she wrote something.
She's a grandmother, she's a grandma.
I'm a grandma. You know, she wrote about, you know, she said, you know, that her parents didn't give her cash. We paid for her to go to school, we did all of that stuff. The biggest thing we gave her is the confidence to expand her world. So for me, that's very important. Then we move from that, right, to then say, you know, I like to say, you know, I heard you say earlier on that you're a Christian. I'm a Christian also. You know, that if you think about the Proverbs 31 woman, she was a hard-working woman. But she didn't just work hard. She also had returns. She invested in land. She had a trading business, as it were. She was a formidable force. Guess what? It's not enough to do all of that and not be able to pass it on. Real estate is one of the things that you can pass on to your children, but so is your intellectual property. More women need to understand the power of the digital economy that we're in today, that you can convert your wisdom into books, into courses, into programs. Do you see? Even into, you know, that to create wealth if only we understood the power of it, right? So for me, generational wealth is first about the structure at home, how you've raised these children, how you've raised them to think beyond local citizens, not talk about being tribal citizens. If they're tribal, they're never going to really be wealthy. They have to go beyond being local to regional to global citizens. So we must learn, the mindset is super important.
We must learn to teach our children to play global.
Absolutely.
To be global, because even the world now is changing.
It is, while being grounded locally, because identity is a part of economic value. Exactly. It really is.
Exactly.
It really is, yeah.
Do you think that we're having enough conversation around gender lens investing? And why I'm asking that question is because would investments or investment trends have a different color from how men invest, gender lens investing? For example, like what you're doing, you know?
Absolutely. So here's the thing.
Would it push the needle a bit?
It would. It would push the needle, Nancy. And I'm glad to see that across Africa, that's beginning to happen. Obviously being championed by women. But as you know, the GCEO at NMPC yesterday said, it's not enough to say that they're, you know, that behind every man there's a woman. Behind women, there are also men. And so when it comes to this gender lens investing, what's also happening is that the men who've commanded wealth all these years and centuries, right, generally then tend to start backing some of these, you know, gender lens investment platforms, right, in addition to the women. The reason I bring that up is to say that it's important to recognize that the women must stand up to become the capital allocators by building the platforms that everybody, men and women, can bring in their capital. But the important thing is that it is a woman who is assessing those opportunities, and you're assessing it and looking at certain things that, quite frankly, sometimes, you know, unconscious, subconscious bias can stop. And that's why we have all the gaps, right, that we have in the capital allocation across Africa and even across the world. The amount of money that is, you know, given out or invested in startups, I understand there's a massive gap. Women tend to get less than 2.5% of all those billions that are invested, whether it's through, you know, PEs or VCs and all of that stuff. So gender lens investing is super important because it empowers more women, emboldens them, gives them the capital and the courage to, as it were, scale and be bolder. as it were. It's not enough to inspire. It's important to back more women.
Okay. As we end, we have about 2 minutes to end this. Sure. What advice would you give for a woman watching, or even a man watching? Let's bring it home right now, because whatever we're saying now cascades to the family unit. How do families watching, husband and wife, or whoever is watching, man and woman, you know, translate this information? What should be the habits right now at home? Perhaps if there are financial moves that we should take strategically?
What I would say, Nancy, and thanks for that question, what I would say is that, you know, there's a sense in which women are undervalued, underutilized, right, and underestimated. And any family that underestimates the contribution of their women, you are essentially shooting yourself in the foot. You are actually not being wise, right? So I want to say that on a practical level, more men need to get wiser about tapping into the power of the female partners. We need to think about partnerships in marriages, in families, understanding that the women have astuteness that we're not tapping into that can actually expand family wealth. Men who hide away their resources, their wealth and all of that do themselves a massive disservice, because a woman is at the center of a house. And this is not taking into account that there are women who also bring significant resources to the table in their families and in their homes. Let's stop making them need to hide, because conditioning and cultural, environmental factors, right, tends to make more women, as it were, underplay their capacity, so that they're not then seen as, oh, arrogant and all that stuff. So we're really cutting and shortchanging ourselves if we don't recognize that power and actually celebrate it, not do it on the side as though, you know, it's something that is abominable. Women are powerful, and we're a powerful economic force if we are, as it were, acknowledged. More women need to be acknowledged in homes.
I know we can go on and on with this kind of conversation. It's always nice when we talk, because the conversation never ends.
I know.
But we just have to, we just have to go now. Thank you for giving me this, your book. Really, Real Women Invest in Real Estate. This is the gift you brought to me, so you can get it. Udo Marianne Okonjo, The Wise Woman's Guide to Real Estate Investing and Achieving Financial Security.
Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing me this gift. And I hope to see you soon whenever you're in Abuja again. Please stop by. We have a beautiful real estate here.
You do the amazing real estate at this campus.
This is your first time in the AIT,
I couldn't believe it. I was driving up and I was like, what?
Well,
like the views. It literally has the most vantage views of Abuja. Incredible real estate here. Wow.
Thank you. All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. My director is saying, hurry, hurry, hurry. Director, I'm going now. All right, Udo Okonjo has been my guest, the Chief Executive Officer and Vice Chairman at Fine & Country West Africa. I'll see you all again next time. Be the best you can be, but the change that you want to see. Bye for now.